All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Zeb Wellborn. I am president of the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce. Today is our Chino Valley Leaders Webinar on the coronavirus. I want to give you some kind of brief updates. Right now, we are live on Facebook, so if you wouldn't mind, do me a favor and share that link out to your audience. So it is on the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce Facebook page. We are live there, so help spread the word about the work we're doing. And make sure you share that link with your folks on your Facebook page and let people know that we're doing this today. We have a great lineup of panelists today. You can see some of them here. Good morning, Glenda.
Good morning, everyone.
Perfect. So we're going to go on and we're going to continue on with our Chino Valley Leaders Webinar on the coronavirus. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on today, so we'll be very interested to hear from these folks. First up, we have Stephanie Wade from Congressman Gil Cisneros' office. Stephanie?
Thanks very much, Zeb. I'm very brief this morning. The first thing is I think the congressman, is just about every American, is deeply disturbed by the death of George Floyd, and in our sympathy with the protesters. Though the congressman is also quick to remind folks not only to stay peaceable, but to understand that you're accepting a significant elevated level of risk due to the COVID-19 virus, and that these may even be super spreader events. The congressman did also ask me to communicate both to the city council and to the people of Chino Hills how proud he was of them, the protests that occurred this past weekend in Chino Hills and how peaceable it was. And that was led by students. And we really, we applaud the quality of their actions and the sentiment that they had. Other than that, we've been very inspired to see Chino Hills, the city staff is getting back to a full-time schedule. And we're looking to support. I think the one thing that people on the chamber calls are most interested in, with good reason, is SBA funding and the PPP loans. As most folks who've been on this call will know, the congressman is voted for and is a strong supporter of the HEROES Act. In particular, the main reason, because it's the best vehicle or really the only vehicle we have at the moment to increase funding or to restore funding to those PPP loans and to get more money out into our Main Street economies. While we don't know that doesn't look to be moving at the moment, I did speak to our legislative staff this morning, and there is, pretty good discussion that the Senate and the Speaker and that Mitch McConnell is planning to take up legislation to restore PPP funding. So that does seem to be moving, not as fast as probably any of us would like, but there is movement on that front. And other than that, I'm just here to take questions and to remind people again, if you have specific issues with a federal agency, especially a case or something, we're here to help. And if anybody'd like to reach me, I'm going to put my contact information into the chat.
Okay, perfect. We do have a question from Jim. Is what can we do as citizens to encourage the HEROES Act movement?
Well, I think it's predominantly with the Senate. We know that Senator Harris and both California senators, Senator Feinstein and Senator Harris, both support passage of the HEROES Act. It can sometimes help to contact their offices. I'd suggest at this point, since it's a little bit like calling 911 in the middle of an emergency when you have a non-emergency issue. I'm not saying it is an emergency, but there's just so much urgent casework that's going on. I would encourage you to write, because constituent stories, those do have an impact. And even if, our senators are supporting it, since, the Senate is where the action is, having some influence that way. But I'd say often, speaking to people like yourself, Zeb, leveraging your connections to business organizations, and interested groups that have a say in Washington, those can also be really influential, because if you can help get the chamber, the national chamber, to help move and put pressure on this issue, you're really helping to move the entire federal government.
Well, and so kind of walk through the current status of that. What is the current status of the HEROES Act? It's
The HEROES Act has passed in the House of Representatives, but Senator McConnell has said he refuses to take it up in the Senate. And so, obviously it can't, it's a bicameral legislature, so it won't pass without both. And I might add that the president has at least said rhetorically that he would veto it should it arrive to his desk. So in essence, what really needs to happen here is there needs to be some kind of compromise, because people on both sides of the aisle are of one mind that we need to restore funding to the SBA loans and provide more relief to small businesses. And also, a big part of the HEROES Act that the congressman strongly supported was providing increased funding for testing, contact tracing, and relief for local hospitals that have really suffered as, the more lucrative parts of hospital budget, like the elective surgeries, have really been put on hold. And there's, been a giant shock to hospitals, yet emergency rooms, which are usually an enormous cost, and ICUs, those things are costing them a tremendous amount of money. So, those fixes are coming, but the more pressure you can put on it. The congressman thought the HEROES Act was a pretty good bill. I think on his Chino Hills town hall, there were some people that complained about specific aspects of it, and there were things he agreed he didn't like particularly. But overall, he felt strongly that there was much good in it, and that it was the best option we had. And so we hope what eventually will arrive will be at least a compromise that preserves the most important parts of that bill.
Yeah, and then obviously we're going through something else right now. So, this webinar was started to focus on the coronavirus and talk about how we can help businesses and assist businesses. But obviously this is something that's impacting our entire community, our business community as well. How is your office affiliated with, or, how are you guys handling everything that's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, we haven't had any direct contact with activists who've really reached out to us on that point. I have one constituent that is an activist on it, and I plan to reach her today. But I mean, the congressman, really does believe there needs to be some policing reform, or significant policing reform in this country, and that we also need to address, just as a culture, systemic issues of racism in our society. Does that mean any of us endorse any looting or violence? No. And I think the Black Lives Matter protests are overwhelmingly in opposition to that. And I mean, these are acts by either isolated individuals who are hooligans, and then in some cases criminal enterprises that are causing the problems. But the congressman is quick to point out that that doesn't delegitimize the sentiment of the overwhelming majority of the people who are protesting and standing up against this. So we haven't had a direct act on it, and I don't think we've taken any legislative actions that would particularly connect to this at the moment. But I mean, I think you see where the congressman stands. And it's interesting. I think most people on both sides of the aisle are very quick to acknowledge that what happened to George Floyd was really reprehensible, and it was an obvious case of, really a murder. I mean, he was murdered, and that's pretty clear. And even President Trump, who we often disagree with, is clear to say the same thing, that he was horrified by that video. So I think there really needs to be a national reckoning, and I don't know where where our office is particularly going to go on it, but we're looking for that, and I think the congressman will be providing leadership on that when the appropriate time comes. And I know, for instance, Congressman Correa sits on the Judiciary Committee, and I think that's where a lot of the focus is going to be, on looking at reform. I mean, Governor Cuomo, for instance, in New York, has said something that I think a lot of people here in California have been saying about the need for there to be federal investigative power, because police investigating their own organizations is often complicated. So I don't know if that's where the congressman will step out, but those are the kinds of things that everybody in America has to be looking at.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, perfect. Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insights with us. We really appreciate you and the congressman for updating us every week.
Okay, and by the way, Zeb, I'm jumping off a little early today, but actually I wanted to mention it. I know City Hall is opening up, and we are not restarting because the guidance we got from the House of Representatives. I will not be restarting my office hours in Chino Hills, but I do have constituent business in Chino Hills. As a matter of fact, that's the reason I'm leaving early today. I'm meeting with a constituent in Chino Hills. If there's something that can't be done over the phone or via email and you need a field representative, I'll be there. And I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And again, I'll put my contact info in the chat.
Okay, great. Stephanie, thank you so much. All right. We're going to kind of jump around on our agenda a little bit. So, Glenda, are you ready?
Yes, could you hear me? I'm just muting myself.
Yes, we can. So let me give you a proper introduction. So Glenda Chavez is a public sector manager at Waste Management. She is also a board of director for the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce and a sponsor as well. So thank you, Glenda, for all you do for the chamber and our community. We thought it'd be a really good idea to offer updates from leaders in our community and their businesses and how their businesses are being impacted by the coronavirus. And maybe even if they're up for it, talking a little bit about any issues that have arisen over the past weekend or the past few days. So Glenda, take it away.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Like Seth said, I'm proud to be a board of on the board for the Chamber of Commerce representing waste management. And like I say, if you want to talk chamber or talk trash, I'm the one that you should call. I do miss everybody and being interactive with everyone, but I do appreciate the opportunity to just give you a brief update. Obviously, our services that we provide are essential, and so as coronavirus started to hit, we did a lot of planning to keep our employees safe. Part of that is like administrators and managers and our customer service representatives are working remotely to apply the 6 feet distancing requirements, and also to provide that safety for our essential drivers to be able to perform their job. And I'm proud to say that they have handled this very well. Our service is continuing. We haven't had any interruptions, so that's great. They continue to be dedicated to serving our customers. We have seen, obviously, as everyone might imagine, a decline in commercial accounts because a lot of businesses are closed due to COVID. So we've been able to work with these businesses in making their accounts, reinstate them later on when they are ready to go back to work. And so we've been working with them on that. Residential waste services have been continuing. And as you know, we're all home. And what are we doing? We're cleaning, we're remodeling and doing all these kinds of things. So we have seen a significant amount of increase in trash. We're looking at 25 to 30%. So a route that would normally take one driver, that would be his route. We've had to have another driver sometimes come and help finish it off because of the larger volume that we're collecting. That means that the truck has to go get dumped and then come back. So people are doing, they're cleaning and getting things organized. So that's great. But I just wanted to point that out, that we have been seeing an increase in residential trash. I also wanted to give an update. We do have a wonderful program for Chino residents to be able to dispose of larger items. It's a bulky item pickup. We give residents 3 a year, and you could call our 1-800 number to schedule that. Our number, I could give it to you at the end for that. Also, the city has a wonderful Hhw program that they run second and fourth Saturday of every month. And it's run through the county. So if you're a Chino Hills resident or a Chino resident, as long as you're in San Bernardino County and you show proof of residency, you'll be able to dispose of your hazardous waste, because we are cleaning our homes. We really want to make sure that you are disposing of those materials properly, and that's a great source. And you can get more information by calling the city, and I'll provide those numbers at the end. But other than that, we continue to make sure that we're doing the safety precautions. I think one of the great benefits for our employees up in the forefront is that they've been used to handling, waste and materials, but so we've always had some really good, strict safety guidelines. But now with COVID, obviously we've increased them, but the implementation has been very successful. So I'm happy to report that we've managed to stay COVID safe and continue to service the wonderful city of Chino. And that's all for my update. So the number for waste management, if you are a Chino resident and you want to schedule one of your bulky item pickups, it's 1-800-423-9986. And the city manages the residential accounts, and they could give you information also on HHW, and that number is 909-334-3264. Again, that's 909-334-3264.
Perfect. Thank you, Glenda. A couple of questions for you is you mentioned that you're seeing like a 30% increase in dumping of that. Is that do you get compensated for that, or is that just kind of extra work for you guys?
It's extra work for us. I mean, we are seeing, obviously, the more times we go dump things, the more money it costs to go dump things. So it has affected us. But at the same time, we've managed to kind of, I mean, no one really foresaw that this was happening. So it's definitely a lesson learned to kind of prepare for future incidents like this. But yeah, we have seen a lot of people, the cans are heavier. If the trash can gets full, guess what? The other cans get used. So an important thing is to really maintain recyclables contamination free if possible. And that's why I wanted to bring up the bulky item pickup, because it is a great program. It includes e-waste. So if you have a TV that you just bought and you want to get rid of the old one, like there's certain items that are too big to be put in the can. So if you haven't utilized them, this program, please call us and we'll be able to pick up your items. And how the program runs is that the day that on your service day, you just place the items next to your cans, and a different truck comes and picks them up. So if the trash car truck came and picked up everything else and the items are still out there, please don't worry, it's a different truck that comes and picks it up. So please utilize that program, so that way it does help us with the increase in trash that we've seen.
Okay, cool. And are you seeing an increase in those big bulky item pickups right now?
We have, a lot of people, initially we really were not trying, people who are longtime residents understand that this was a program, but we really want people to take advantage of it. We're not like aggressively promoting it because it's still our drivers grabbing people's things and, things like that. So initially we were a little bit concerned about that, but the program has continued throughout COVID. So we just made sure that our drivers handle it a little differently. So we're happy to be able to continue to offer it.
Okay, perfect. Well, Glenda, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your updates about waste management and how our trash collection services are taking care of our community and making sure your employees are safe and the challenge that you're facing. I think it's really valuable from our chamber perspective to get an idea of how different industries are impacted by this. And so what we're going to start doing when we have our talks our weekly webinars on the Chino Valley leaders in the coronavirus is we're going to have people from different industries sharing just how it's impacted us, because I think it's important for us to have an understanding of how each organization, each industry is impacted by our current situation. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, Tom.
Okay, perfect. Leah, are you ready?
Can you see me this time?
I can, yes. So we figured it out. So let me do a proper introduction. We have from Southern California Gas Company, we have Public Affairs Manager Leah Peterson. She has also just recently joined our legislative committee, so our legislative action committee. So thank you, Leah. And give us an update on SoCal Gas.
Great. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to join you today or how tired I would be, because for a lot of you who know me, you're probably not aware that I'm also an emergency responder. And last night in the Inland Empire, we had almost 20 incidents where there were protests. And I would have to say the vast majority of them were peaceful. There were some incidents that did get some of the protests did turn sour, shall we say, where some people were taking advantage of the situation, but all in all, it came out that people were able to be heard, express their feelings and viewpoints on the tragic death of George Floyd, and there certainly was not as much damage as you had seen in the news in the Los Angeles area. So that was good news last night. A little bit of things to do with the gas company. As Glenda was just talking about, people are starting to open up their businesses again. And so particularly for commercial operations, if you are going to start up your businesses and maybe you haven't used your gas appliances for a number of months, or you're starting back into manufacturing or restaurants, and you want to make sure that your equipment is safe, please call our 800 number and schedule an appointment. It's free. Our 800 number is 800-427-2200. I'll put that on the chat as well. But again, 800-427-2200, so that we will come out and be able to check all your appliances, make sure they're safe, and that you can start operating as quickly as possible, utilizing your natural gas equipment. The other thing I wanted to share is I know that some people have been hit really hard financially. A lot of their employees have been laid off or furloughed. If you can also apply with us and get a 20% reduction on your natural gas bill, it's very easy to apply for, and you can do that over the phone, or you can do it at our website, socalgas.com. And Zeb did bring this up. I think this is really key at this particular time. Zeb organized a legislative committee where we will be reviewing different pieces of legislation and making comment. A lot of you are experts in different fields and industries, and so your input would be really valuable and your participation, so that the Chino Valley Chamber can support the interests of the business community during this time. Because of the coronavirus, there is a lot of legislation that will impact businesses, because there's been such a hard hit economy at all levels, whether it's city, county, state, federal. They haven't been able to get the dollars in. Your own businesses have been impacted. And so therefore, it's very important that we have a voice in what decisions are being made at the elected level. So thanks, Zeb, for spearheading this, and particularly at this time. If you do have any questions, feel free to give me a call. Zeb has my contact information. We are, half of our people are still working from home, but we've been very successful at that, and I'm pleased to report that our construction workers are still out in the field practicing social distancing, and we were just able to complete the Benson Avenue project that was part of the Caltrans 60 freeway improvement project. So that was successfully completed, and that has a lot to do with the residents of Chino who cooperated with us, because it is a little noisy and dusty, and that part of our job and work is done. So thank you so much, Zeb, for inviting me to join you today.
You're welcome. One quick question is I know that you're, and forgive me if I'm phrasing it wrong, you're on the emergency response team for SoCalGas, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So over the last 4 or 4 days, I know that you've been extremely busy kind of working in that. What are kind of the concerns that the gas company is facing when it comes to that?
What people aren't aware is our field crews show up at just about every fire that occurs. A lot of times during a fire or house fire or business fire, the meters will be damaged, and then we either have to close down the meter, or literally have to pinch the pipe off in the street in order to prevent any further damage. And so we're there to be able to support first responders, specifically the fire department. Chino Valley and Chino Hill, the city of Chino and Chino Hills both had demonstrations on Sunday, and those were peaceful demonstrations, so that was not a concern. But we are always on call. We operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I have my cell phone on to prove it. We get called out on those incidents and we respond. And it's also, we respond to the wildfires. I've personally responded to earthquakes, massive floods up in Montecito. There are a number of situations that happen where there's mass evacuations. And so natural gas is underground. It's provided through our pipeline system, but we have over 100,000 miles of pipe in the ground. And that being said, there's lots of times when people do hit our lines because they haven't called Dig Alert, which is another free service. And we're there to respond and be able to assist the public in being able to mark and locate any types of pipelines, as well as other utilities.
All right, well, perfect. Well, thank you, Leah. The other thing I wanted to kind of highlight here as well is, I mentioned Glenda Chavez from Waste Management is one of our Chairman's Circle sponsors. You had reached out because we're educating our community on what was happening with the coronavirus, and you kind of committed to sponsoring these webinars. And so I want to thank you for that, for sponsoring our efforts to try and educate our community about things that they need to be aware of when it comes to the coronavirus and the issues that we're facing right now. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
We had a comment from Jim. They had a gas road crew come up and dig on our street where the gas line crosses and patch it up later. What kind of work do they usually do when they do this?
Usually we could be adding new services, or we could be doing a repair because we're constantly checking for leaks. When we came in, we patched it. Some people are not comfortable with the initial patch. We have to make sure that the soils are properly compacted, so we put a temporary patch, and then we come back later and then we put the permanent repairs in. But that's usually because we're checking, if it's in a residential neighborhood, we're checking for leaks and making sure that the community is safe.
All right. Perfect. Leah, thank you so much. Be safe out there, and thank you for coming on. Okay, next up on our panelist is the Deputy City Manager for the City of Chino, Vivian Castro. Vivian, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. Yes, my mouse decided to quit on me, so very difficult to maneuver Windows without a mouse. So my apologies for being late. Well, thank you so much for having me. I always love to hear the update from Stephanie and Leah and Glenda, so thank you. So just wanted to let everybody know that our City Council meeting is resuming its regular operations tonight. By that we mean that the council will be there in person. The meeting will be open to the public so that everybody can come and participate in person if they'd like. We will be practicing social distancing, so you'll see that the setup is a little bit different. There aren't as many chairs for the public in the council chambers, but the back wall will be open so that we can accommodate additional people as necessary. We'll also just have basic staff that's needed to present, just to keep the numbers down a little bit. And we will continue to be broadcasting on Channel 3 as we have in the past, and it will be live as well as recorded on our website. So closed session is at 6 and the council meeting is at 7. And for anyone that wants to submit questions, they can do so via email or online. So, we hope that the public will engage again. And I see from Jim, he's asking a question about the Chino budget. Chino budget, like the budget of so many local governments right now, is obviously being impacted. Our city council did have a budget workshop on Thursday. We went over the budget in detail. A lot of there were significant changes made to the budget. There were we're looking at a shortfall of about 4 to 5 million next year. As some of you may know, we did have to furlough about 150 employees, all really from community services. That's the area of city operations that unfortunately has not been able to continue or resume operations. City Hall did open to the public on May 18th. Throughout the quarantine period, city operations were still full, full operation. We, although staff was good number of staff was working remotely, we still were processing, permits and business licenses and doing a lot of that remotely or by appointment. But unfortunately, because of the very nature of community services, I mean, their role is bringing people together, and those operations were not able to continue. So 150 or so employees have been furloughed. It was a very tough personal thing, I think, for that department and for all, all of us here, because it's such a close family here in Chino. So unfortunately, we don't know when or if or how these services are going to be able to resume. We do know that the next big event that we are planning as a city to have is the Halloween Spooktacular in October. So we're hoping that that we can continue with that. You probably have heard that we are not having the 4th of July spectacular, so that's I think a disappointment to everybody. But the fireworks sales are still on. So you'll start getting information and seeing that in the community. But unfortunately, the big events, so much of what our community relies on in terms of senior events, the neighborhood activity center, so much of the child care programs, a lot of those are not going to continue. On the child care programs, though, I do want to say that we're happy to report that summer camp did start. It started yesterday, and they are taking enrollments right now. The camp is at Cross Point Church on Euclid and I believe is that Schaefer. Things are going well. So a little bit at a time. A lot of those other youth-related programs will also depend on what happens with the school district and what school is going to look like in the fall. But at least for those of you that are looking for a summer camp for your kids, someplace that's safe and good staff. That's where my little guy is today. Has been there for a while now. I would recommend you reach out, and that we are still taking registrations on an ongoing basis. So we hope you take advantage of that. But in terms of the budget overall, going back to that issue, it's, so much of the information that we have is delayed. I mean, we don't really know how the property taxes, we know how those are going to be impacted, but sales tax revenues, other sources of revenue for the city, there's about a 3-month gap between the time that we actually start to see that in our accounts. So we're hoping that for the best, we're hoping that our businesses are able to rebound. And unfortunately, we're very sad that just as so many of our businesses were beginning to open, there's some concern and fear. I know I left City Hall yesterday at about 5:30 and went to go pick up a few things at a local market here on Central, and they were hurrying up to kind of close up, even though Chino does not have a curfew. I think they were concerned for their safety, and so it's concerning. But luckily in Chino we did have a protest that was organized on Sunday. This past Sunday, it was here at City Hall. It was peaceful. There were no issues. And we feel that the community, we don't foresee that there's going to be any issues. We've heard that there are possibly other protests planned, and we believe that those are likely to remain peaceful as well. So as of right now, there is no curfew in the city of Chino. I know that there were quite a few questions on social media, and so we tried to get that information out. So those are the main things. We are hoping to have the council actually adopt the budget. So they went through it on the workshop on Thursday, and we're hoping for the budget to be adopted at the second council meeting this month. So we have a council meeting tonight, and then in 2 weeks we will review the budget, and they will hopefully adopt it by then. But we do foresee that there will probably need to be some adjustments later on in the year, mid-year adjustments to the budget again as information comes in. And so that's about it. And just on the kind of following up on what Glenda was talking about, we did have to cancel the community cleanup that was scheduled earlier in the year. My understanding is I think we're rescheduling. The next one is going to be in September. So just wanted to make everybody aware that that's coming up. So, and that's it for now. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so last week you came on and you had kind of, I hope this is the case, but I kind of remember you talking about the Cdbg funds that you guys were kind of allotting towards businesses. Do you have an update on that?
I do. We're still waiting to hear from HUD. So the council did approve the amendment to the Cdbg program, so that the program guide kind of design has been submitted to HUD. We're just waiting to hear back from them. So just as for any of you that weren't in on the call last week, it is a micro business grant, basically anywhere from $1,000 up to $10,000 per recipient. That funding is can be used for primarily for paying for rent or lease. We think that that's a good way to kind of trickle into the community. So it just depends. It's designed to cover about 3 months rent for any of our small businesses, and we do have information. I'll be happy to send that out to you. So as soon as we hear back from HUD, we're going to send out information, and the chamber will help us get that out to you as well. Unfortunately, we just can't start taking those applications until we get the okay from HUD, but be on the lookout. And we know it's not a huge amount of money, but we believe that by putting together all these various pots that are available to our businesses, we're hoping to help these small businesses stay afloat. So feel free to give me a call, or Chris Kennedy, our economic development manager, can tell you more about it. He's overseeing that program, and I'll be happy to send out information. But do know that we will send that out as soon as we get approval. We'll send out the information to the chamber. But it's going to be, have your information ready, right? Number of employees. It is designed for low to medium income. So that is for the location of your business, the composition of your employees, or you as the business owner. So more information will be available about that, but it's just start getting your information together. So as soon as it's available, you can apply. It is going to be on a first come, first served basis. We have $285,000 up, as I mentioned, $1,000 to $10,000. So we're hoping to be able to fund, in the 30 or so range of small businesses, so micro businesses. So thank you.
Thank you. And then you had kind of mentioned that you guys are expecting a shortfall of $5 million or so. What does that look like for the future? I mean, do you have any insight on that, or is that something that's kind of up in the air for you?
Luckily the city of Chino and the council have really been good about ensuring that we have healthy reserves available. But even with those reserves, we do have, once we fall to a certain level, we would implement, a hiring freeze. So right now we are, there is a freeze other than those positions that were already kind of in being filled. So it will obviously impact that. In terms of operations, I mean, the cuts that were made, that were discussed during the workshop that are going to be considered by the council are generally for programs. A lot of things have been carried over into the future. So, for example, we are not purchasing, any vehicles that we had planned to replace vehicles and equipment. Programs that could be held over are being held over. So there, we're in terms of operations, capital projects, for example, some of those are provided by outside, state and federal, regional funding. So we're continuing with those to the degree we can. You've probably seen a lot of construction during the quarantine period, and so it's not just the city of Chino, but other agencies as well are continuing in our capital improvement projects, because one benefit has been that we're getting good bids on projects. So we're trying to get as much of those things done. So as I mentioned, we may need to come back and make additional cuts. So unfortunately, the low-lying fruit, I think, is what we have, staff has proposed and the council's considering for cuts. So as additional cuts may have to be made, those decisions do get tougher. So, but we're optimistic that the economy can rebound. We just need to kind of focus on keeping the support going for our local businesses and focusing on recovery and moving forward. So we'll keep you posted.
All right, Vivian, thank you so much for coming on and sharing what the city of Chino is handling and the stuff that they have prepared for the coronavirus. So I thank you for coming on and sharing those insights with us.
Thank you, Zeb.
Our next panelist, let me get her on here. Our next panelist, she is the president and broker at KB Real Estate. She's also a board member of the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce, and she's also a sponsor of the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce. Kavita, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Sorry I didn't set this up properly and you can't see me, unfortunately. But I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to discuss commercial real estate. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Kavita Bhatia, broker owner of KB Real Estate. We specialize in the sales and leasing of commercial real estate. I've been doing commercial real estate for over 10 years, and about 3 years ago, we set up our office in the beloved Chino Valley. So really love this community. And again, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak on the effects of coronavirus on commercial real estate, because the effect of it has been very pronounced. Before I get into that, I do want to share a little bit about what commercial real estate is for those that might not know. Commercial real estate is real estate used for the purpose of for the purpose of business. So for instance, warehouses, retail shops, office suites, restaurant spaces, those all fall under the umbrella of commercial real estate. Therefore, when businesses are impacted, so too is commercial real estate, because it stands on the shoulders of businesses. When the coronavirus hit, the effect of it was very pronounced, and each month starting from March sort of had its own characteristic to it. When I look back, I kind of characterize the month of March as being our month of denial. And I say that because we were still thinking this is going to be a little bump in the road. In the leasing side, we had leases that were drafted starting April 1st, which means new businesses were starting in April 1st, or people were expanding spaces in April 1st. On the sales side, we had a lot of contracts and purchases that we were working on. And as March came towards an end and the closure started, everything came to a standstill. People slammed on the brakes of their decision making. We had people sort of throw their hands up and say, in this environment, we don't know where it's going. And we don't want to commit ourselves to anything. Same thing with purchases. You know, lenders stopped taking new applications at this time because they also wanted to see how this thing was going to play out. So when you're selling a property, you need loans to happen. And if lenders aren't feeling comfortable to lend in this environment, you're not going to have any sales. So that brought us to the month of April, which was the month of uncertainty, which we didn't know how low is low. Where is this going to flatten out? Right now, people were we were hearing about these PPP loans coming through, and it's, you know, helping people be able to, helping business owners to be able to pay their rent payments. But people applied, but they weren't even getting recognition or confirmations back from the bank saying, hey, we got your application, we're processing it, or some kind of communication from them. So there was so much uncertainty at that time. We were not doing any new deals. However, we were taking care of our clients, our deals that we had done. So a lot of our older clients, our landlords and tenants, reached out to us for assistance in trying to work out compromises in rent payments. And the prudent landlord was proactive in reaching out to the tenants and saying, hey, I see you're struggling, you're a non-essential business, you know, let's work out a payment plan. So the prudent landlord understood that we needed to work something out with these tenants. And the prudent tenant understood, hey, this landlord, they've also got a payment to make. So if they have a 10,000 square foot building and they've got 10 tenants, you know, 50% of those tenants might not be able to pay rent. So, you know, let us also see the human side. So kindness and care, going both ways in those relationships, helped get most of the people through it, landlords and tenants. So seeing each other, that we're all in the same pot, was what got a lot of people out of these sticky situations. The month of May was optimistic. The month of May, I think most of us were able to see what is the new playing field here. What helped us? There was more discussion about reopening. Counties came up with guidelines on how to get businesses to reopen, what their expectations were in terms of practicing social distancing. So that helped. The PPP loans started coming. People started getting paid on their PPP loans. So that was very helpful. Now, again, landlords feeling comfortable that their rent payments were going to come in, feeling positive. And then another thing that helped is now, as we're turning around, there's a lot of buyers in the market. There's an increase in people doing loan applications, applying for loans, because the interest rates are low. People are feeling positive that there's going to be deals out there. Sellers got savvy. There's more people wanting to do and open to doing seller financing on purchases with very competitive interest rates. I too am in escrow right now, where it's seller financing, and I got a very good rate, and I share that because there are deals out there, and right now people are open, and what's going to get us through this time is bringing in creativity. As far as the leasing, that was really on a standstill from March and April. In May, all of those people started calling us back and saying, hey, I think we're almost through this. Let's start turning this thing around. Let's have a lease, but can we, take into consideration the COVID delays? We may have delays with the city in terms of processing our building plans. If we're going to build out a restaurant, for instance, let's take all of those things into account. And we did that. We worked with the landlords. The landlords were much more open to listening. We had, commencement dates that were pushed down the road a little bit. And then as far as, working through and adding in terms that would address those COVID delays, we did that too. So I think in the month of May, we learned that everyone needs to be creative to make these real estate transactions happen. And again, I think that's where that's been helpful in getting us through that time. Zeb, again, I appreciate you letting me speak about this. I also wanted to share that there are, some concerns about businesses closing, and you keep hearing about, Soup Plantation is closing down or Hometown Buffet is closing down, Pier 1. Honestly, I think a lot of these businesses were kind of hanging on by a nail already, and they were gonna go. It was either, this year or next year, but they were pretty much the businesses that you do see closing are the businesses that mostly were kind of on their way out. Either people made decisions that, hey, if I'm gonna retire next year, let me just do it now. There were those sort of reasons as well. And again, just businesses that had kind of lost touch with, I think, the new generation, the millennials that are out there that are really going to the restaurants, that want to explore things that are a little bit more different than a Soup Plantation, for example. But also I wanted to talk to you about, there's also legislation now, like the SB 939, that addresses rent payments for commercial tenants in particular. So I'm not sure if it's passed yet or not. I know that last Friday they were supposed to, or the week before they were supposed to vote on it. But I think there were some modifications that needed to be made that allowed tenants about a grace period of 12 months to make their rent payments. And it particularly dealt with commercial real estate. And Zeb, again, thank you so much for letting me speak on this. If you have any questions, please let me know. And for those out there, if you have any questions about, your leases, if you need any advice regarding how to deal with your landlord or landlords, how to deal with your tenants, please give us a call. Our phone number is 909-233-8003.
Perfect. Kavita, thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. Again, I think it's important that we get an understanding from all different industries about how this is impacting our different areas. So it's good to hear that things are looking up on the commercial real estate side of things. When you say that it's a buyer's market?
I would say it's an exciting time for people to go out there and buy. You may not see prices dropping like you did back in like 2008, 2009. I think there's too many protections in place to see that. However, I think as far as the interest rate being so low and being able to kind of get more terms that are favorable to a buyer aside from price, those are going to be out there for you. So definitely a great time to go out there, get your loan applications in. We have some great lenders that are part of the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce, like GG Fix at Chino Commercial Bank, for instance. I think it's a good time to apply, do those loan applications, know where you stand and what your affordability is, so that when you do see something that appeals to you, you're able to pull the trigger and make that purchase.
Okay, Kavita, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We're going to go on to our next panelist. Oh, and before I do that, let me just throw a little reminder out there. It says this is on Facebook, so it's live on Facebook. So if you found something valuable here, you think businesses would like to be informed on things like maybe the Cdbg funds that are being available by the city of Chino that look like they're coming out soon, or something else that was covered today, make sure you share this with your friends and family. I also want to mention that in the chat box, we also have additional leaders from that are aside from our panelists. So we have folks from the real estate industry. We have folks from Inland Empire Utilities Agency, the City of Chino, Chino Valley Fire, and a variety of others. So make sure that those folks in the chat, they are putting this stuff in the chat box. Make sure you connect with those if you have questions in those particular areas. So our last panelist today is the Executive Vice President and General Counsel at California Chamber of Commerce, Erika Frank. Erika, I'm giving you the ability to talk right now. Erika, are you there?
I am. Hey, Zeb, thanks for inviting me again, and happy Tuesday. So the businesses are opening up as we are seeing, and I'm trying to be an optimist. The roads up in Northern California and Sacramento definitely show more activity than we'd seen in prior weeks. So that's encouraging. The entire nation has had some pretty significant things happening around town. I know in Sacramento, where I'm located, a lot of our local community not only had COVID-19, but now had some additional devastation due to rioting that's been going on in the Sacramento area. So it doesn't feel like 2020 is getting any better, but I know the business community can stand together and rise above. As far as what we are seeing from reopening efforts, the CDC continues to update their guidelines. And from my perspective, in addition to seeing what the local health authorities are saying, the CDC is an excellent resource for employers to turn to for guidelines, information. Do I do a temperature check? Do I not? I know at Cal Chamber, our labor law helpline has been receiving a number of calls from employers ranging from, do we do temperature checks to, should we be concerned if we find out an employee is traveling outside of the area and then coming back to work? So a lot of these issues are addressed not only on the CDC website, but when you take a look at what the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has, that's the EEOC. Of course, Cal Chamber has a resource guide that has all of the links to a lot of the information as well. So as things stand right now, more businesses are opening, employees are coming back. Employers do need to take this opportunity to educate their employees about the importance of physical distancing, of maintaining proper hygiene practices, and that could include reminder signs throughout the workplace of washing your hands, keeping the distance for common areas. The copy machine that people frequent at might need to have some wipes nearby with, a reminder to wipe things down. So there's a lot of behavioral practices that employers are going to have to remind employees about to get us back into a safe environment so that we can get back to work.
Okay, so you mentioned those resources that are available for folks. I mean, so a lot of businesses are opening. They're not quite sure what types of things they should be including. Where would you encourage people to go look at that information?
Yeah, so at calchamber.com, we do have a resource page that includes the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control. We also have the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, that's the EEOC, and then California's equivalent, DFEH, Department of Fair Employment and Housing. Those are going to be your three main one-stop shops next to, the state of California's website. I mean, there's so many different resources out there, but you can go to Cal Chamber's resource page and find it all there.
And then you had kind of articulated that there was some, with writing, that there's issues in your neck of the woods. So what is kind of, how are chambers dealing with that? What's been so far?
So what we've been seeing as far as, again, similar to COVID-19, we have different counties taking different approaches depending upon what has been impacting them. Curfews have been instituted throughout the state various times. Some of the curfews are impacting what would be normal workplace hours. I've seen a number of chambers alerting their members, their businesses about whatever the local curfew might be. So that's a great way for chambers to help. Remembering too, with this, again, the safety of our employees comes first. A lot of businesses are going back to teleworking, at least for those days that they are choosing not to be open. Those that were directly impacted, the counties are all offering different resources for those businesses. So that would be a useful and helpful way that the chambers can help their members, is to collect some of that information.
Okay, perfect. We have one more question for you, which is, what support for businesses? Is there any support for businesses that, let's say, they've been damaged or they've been vandalized? Is there any support mechanisms for those businesses in place, or are they just kind of on their own?
Yeah, so I haven't seen, that's a great question. I haven't seen anything coming from the state so far as issuing specific support specific to this incident. I would check with the local departments to see what they have to offer, because I know that Some cities and downtown collaboratives do have resources, but I don't have anything to specifically direct anybody to at this time.
Okay, perfect. Erika, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing the insights from the Cal Chamber and yourself. We greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just a reminder for everybody, tomorrow is our Wednesday Business at Breakfast from 7:45 to 9. We're going to have a speaker that is talking about how to set up your social media profiles to scale. So that's going to be the topic tomorrow morning. I encourage you, it's a great networking opportunity to connect with other businesses. As a Chamber of Commerce, we're continually putting out information on the coronavirus, so that's on our homepage of our website. We also created a page this last week of businesses that are reopening for business. So if you're back in business, we have a page for you. It's a back in business page for the Chamber. So send me your email or your contact information with the information you would like put on that page. We're trying to update our community about which businesses are open, and so that's a great way to do that. So email me with those. The last thing I kind of want to throw out there is we've been doing this weekly, especially when we first started. You know, everything was kind of up in the air. We weren't quite sure about what was happening, so we were getting like fast and furious updates that are coming on. I think it's going to be more beneficial if we spread it out a little bit. So I think we're going to move from, we're still going to do it, but I want to do it once every other week. So starting this week, we won't be doing it next week, but we will be doing it the following week. So I want to let you guys all know that we won't be doing this next week. We will be doing it the following week, and the plan will be to continue it every other week for the foreseeable future. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in on this and sharing your insights. I want to thank our panelists. Thank you, everybody, for participating today and sharing your insights about how the coronavirus is impacting your world and sharing that with us. So thank you, everybody, and have a great week.